Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Justin from Playing Board Games. Justin, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Justin from Playing Board Games, another channel on YouTube where we play a lot of Arkham Horror and a lot of other things too. Notably, recently is Marvel Champions. I've been diving into this game a lot more, and I'm excited to list my 5 favorite heroes.
Oh, yeah. Today we're going to be doing a combined top 10 list where we talk about our favorite Marvel Champions heroes. But like Justin said, he runs Playing Board Games with a group of other great content creators. And man, they put out some incredible stuff. Like he said as well, Arkham Horror content is copious, but they have a variety of other things, live plays, streaming. They've also got all sorts of other things, list videos, deck building, whatever you need to get into some facet of gaming. My favorite videos definitely have to be the Arkham Horror content. It's like having a group of friends that you can constantly listen to and just share some cool stories, ideas, deck testing. It's like going to locals for a cooperative LCG, and that's kind of cool. So, anything else to add, Justin, before we get started with our list?
No, well, in addition to the YouTube, we also have a Twitch, which we stream 4 days a week, and that link should be on the YouTube, which you'll find down in the description of this video. Probably, I'd wager it's going to be there. Yeah,
you got it. So we'll make sure to include all those links, and please go check out Playing Board Games. Make sure you're subscribed, and thank you so much, Justin, again for making time and joining us on the list.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And we got some people in the chat here. How's it going, David? Thanks for joining us. Let's get started with our list. Now, before we start our list, these are our top 5 Marvel Champions heroes, the 2022 edition. Did you have any criteria or any stipulations here? How did you pick your favorite heroes?
So my favorite heroes, there's going to be a style and I'm going to get into once we start getting there. But like I have a play style in this game that really works for me. If my first time playing the hero, I actually think, wow, this is really cool. I'm like, this character is going to make my list. And then I don't really necessarily care about power. I actually don't even know like who are considered. The only thing I know is that everyone says that Doctor Strange is very strong. That's the only thing I know for sure. And that also like Captain America was pretty good. So like power, I don't really know. This is purely from my enjoyment and how well it fits my play style. Not so much like the fantasy of the character, because I know a lot of them do really good, but I'm also not too well versed on a lot of these characters. So the fantasy of it doesn't really fit for me as a thing, but it's mostly just how much I've enjoyed them and how much they suit my play style.
That makes sense. And that's kind of the same place that I'm coming from. Enjoyment of the character. How much fun it is to play. Am I going to pull them out? What's my go-to? Who do I enjoy the most? So that all being said, let's get started with the list with number 5. So let's go ahead and jump first with you, Justin. What do you got for me? What is your number 5?
So my number 5 is Drax, which has Drax as his other side to him. But this guy has a lot of things that I enjoy. This is going to be my only hero here who is like tanky, because I mean he has whopping 14 hit points. I do like the dance that comes between the flipping between your alter ego and your hero. That's a very fun part of this game. When do you scheme? When do you don't? And what this guy does is he is built around another thing that I really like, just like in Arkham. I love a basic attack. I like a basic investigate action. I like to just get the job done. So this guy, he can, anytime that a character can ready themselves and like attack multiple times and you make your number big and then you get a slice and dice with it, is really cool. And then another thing I really like about Drax is with when the whole threat counter thing, well, it's cool, right? Like that's neat, the buff attack. But I do like that he kind of has extremely good built-in healing. So even when you flip, because what I've been finding with my play of the game, even when you flip into your hero, your alter ego form, it usually comes with a turn of healing. But with Drax, you just necessarily don't need to do that. You can do your attack, get everything done, do all your hero actions, then flip over, get a big boost of healing, and get ready to do it all again. In addition, he also has built-in card draw on his character. And card draw, while good in every game, I think is like doubly good in Marvel Champions because your cards are your resources. And there's just a lot about Drax that really works for me.
I agree. Drax made it to one of my favorites of the year, and he has so many things going well with him. I love that he can play defense cards well, which is
Mhm.
so neat because he introduced a lot of great protection aspect cards in general for just the population. And he works
Mhm.
so well with them because a lot of the times you can dish out some big damage while just chilling in hero mode, and sometimes just taking on attacks by using things like Fight Me Coward. It's just so satisfying. I
Yeah.
love this hero.
Yeah, the Fight Me Coward has so much that makes it really juicy, right? So it readies him, so you get to attack, right? And you get to attack again, or alternatively, like just yeah, basically like an extra attack. I use that for the attacking mostly. It replaces itself, so it's practically like a free resource because it costs 0 to play. And the villain attacks you, which means you're either getting stronger for your next attack, or it turns into another card. Like there's just a lot good there.
You got it. One
Yeah.
of my favorite cards, though, in this set has to be the Dwight the Mastery. This is just every time you make an attack, you get to draw a card. And
Yeah.
this is nuts. It just plays into that aspect you were talking about where once that train keeps going, you just go off. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So that's number 5 for Justin Drax. Excellent. So my number 5 here is one of the newest heroes, actually, to Marvel Champions, and one that I've been really enjoying with just the way that he's very different in how he approaches his turn styles, his system, and this is going to be Vision. So Vision is the ultimate android, and the whole premise of this is he has two forms. He has his intangible form and his dense form. And the way these translate into game is an extra card. So you have his card that's double-sided that while you're in hero mode, you can flip them back and forth. And these cards in particular are going to offer your hero special abilities. But the other cool thing is this also is going to affect what your alter ego can do as well. And I love this. This puts you into this position where you kind of have four forms that you're shifting into, and that's just super fun. This is actually bumped off one of the other heroes that was on the list last year, and that was Ant-Man. And so this character really does that flipping action really well. He also is extremely flexible in the way that he deck builds because of those intangible and dense forms. You're going to be able to get a lot of card draw, which is going to get you to be able to set up pretty quickly. And he's got a lot of flexibility when it comes to the different archetypes he can play. He is an android. He is a Avenger, so you can play a lot of these cool, unique archetypes with things like the team up icons, so that way you can get some extra resource generation. There's just a lot of really good things when it comes to Vision. Now, Justin, have you had the opportunity to play Vision yet?
I've not played Vision yet, no.
So Vision he really is such a different hero because of the way that his multiple forms interact with both sides of his hero and alter ego mode. There's a
Mhm.
lot to love here. And one big thing here that I do want to mention is his ally, which is Viv. So Viv Vision here, she also is going to change based on Vision's hero form. So you can really press into specific aspects and be whatever your team needs you to be. And one thing that we didn't discuss quite here, Justin, is how do you play Marvel Champions primarily?
So I play true solo is my method of play. I've played a little bit of two player, and I'm hoping to add more of that into the future. But mostly it's true solo, which in this game you're either a race to kill the villain or you are managing the threat. So it is nice with this one, you can kind of do both. And when we get to later ones on my list too, you're going to see that that kind of exists. I like that dance where in true solo, it's not just like unstoppable train, kill villain, otherwise I lose. It's a little bit more fun to have a little bit of push pull with the game.
I agree. Are there any heroes in particular that you don't like playing for this game so far?
That's a great question. I
For me,
think
it kind of leads into what you were just describing, where it's either you kill the hero or you lose, and that's Hulk. So Hulk is
Hulk,
very
yeah,
much one that
Hulk.
I just do not enjoy.
I think I also didn't really enjoy like Thor. Like even though I liked him more than Hulk, he was kind of just the same kind of thing, right? And then also like in True Solo, minions are a lot less of a thing that show up, right? Like I find like if I've like, I mean, it's also dependent on the villain, but most of the time, like I don't draw, I draw like one or two minions throughout a whole thing, and then for some reason, like even though he is fun Iron Man, I just can't get into the theme of it, which is just play things and then just be strong because of that. It's not really that enticing to me. So if I had to choose a bottom three, it would be those ones.
Oh my goodness, those are some bold claims you got there. But if I had to talk about one card that I really, really like, probably the most out of this entire set, it's got to be just his regular form, his intangible mass form, and then his dense form. The fact that you have the choice to flip these when you're in hero mode is awesome. Dense is going to give you buffs on your stats, but the coolest thing here is the intangible. While you're here, you can't attack or defend, but you take -2 damage from every single attack, which is so interesting. You could do some really dumb stuff with aggression where you just have all the minions come out and then play these really massive cards for a bunch of card draw, and then do these incredible turns with Vision's attacks, getting a lot of overkill. Oh, it's because you just have so much card draw, so much resource production, so much efficiency. Vision is such a blast to play. My number 5. Oh, what a cool hero. All right, Justin, what is your number 4?
So remember everyone watching how I said I like basic attacks? Well, how about the fastest basic attacks you could ever imagine? My number 4 is Quicksilver, just because he attacks twice for the cost of 1, really. So I've only played a little bit of Quicksilver. However, with my theory, as I said earlier, if I know I like the character, I'll like the character after like my first playthrough of it. And with Quicksilver, immediately I was like, this guy is strong. And I found a deck list where I was building a protection based Quicksilver and using his thing because it's once per phase. So defending and then being able to attack again is really juicy. He does have 9 hit points. So like it's built a lot around keeping him alive, but being able to be active in every state of the game and then basically just take your time to set up the kill turn in a much more interesting way than some of the other ones, right? Because a lot of the other ones you see like, here is my spell that I call them spells, even though they're events. That's just, I'm a magic player at heart. Here's my spell that deals 8 damage. I know what this is for. This is for finishing the game. But with Quicksilver, it's a little bit more like you get your buffs, you get the your upgrades that like get your attack better. You find the trickiest way to then, when you have your always be runnings in hand or other things, and you just attack basically like 9 times, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. There's just a lot I like about there. I do like the design as well. Like a little like Scarlet Witch was close to my top 5. I like her kind of weird chaos magic. But what I really like is with her and Quicksilver, how the allies match the other hero, like the actual printed hero, which I think is really cool.
I love that. I love how they've taken all of the characters with that tag team trait and they employ that. You see that with the
Yeah.
Gamora and Nebula as well, and Ant-Man and Wasp. I just like that idea and that concept. And then you can play those team up cards too, which is great because then you can consistently use them. So it
Yeah.
adds for some really great cooperative play, as well as retaining the spirit of the character by including those allies in the deck. And they retain some of that flavor and effect that's in the other player's deck. So Scarlet Witch deals with these encounter cards here. I think it's pretty amazing. So
Yeah,
big
it's
fan
really
as
cool.
well.
Really cool part of the design.
Fantastic. If you had to pick
Also,
one card that's your favorite in the deck, what would you pick?
oh, I was going to do a special shout out, but it's not my favorite. So I'm going to do my special shout out first. I love Speed Cyclone, a card that just stuns for like basically stun the villain for 1 is a very strong card. Like that, like you're doing a lot of tricks to stun a villain, right? Like, and in solo play, you either like use allies and you just have them die, or you stun as your primary method of making sure you don't die, right? And just having a 1 stun is like juicy. But if I had to do one thing, I'm going to say the card you have a bunch of, always be running, because
Oh yeah.
it's just the Quicksilver card. Nice and simple. And then it also, what I really like about it is it gets your brain moving, being like, why the heck do I want to ready this 1 attack hero? There must be something I can do to make that better.
And I love how the pack introduced a lot of extra bonuses, things that you can spend to permanently give you, not permanently, but temporarily give you some attack.
Yeah.
And so making big, always be running turns, you have ways to reshuffle them in your deck. And then my favorite card, I think, though, has to be this one, the friction resistance. And this allows you to play those chains of always be runnings. Every time you ready Quicksilver, you ready it. So you have a constant passive 1 resource. Oh,
it is
so
really
good.
strong. It is really strong. Yeah.
So excellent pack, excellent choices here. And that is Justin's number 4, Quicksilver. Now, my number 4 is probably the most risky character and also the one that can play into the most grieving. And I just have so much fun with him. His name is Star-Lord. Have you heard of him? I hope so.
He's my number 6. I love
Ah,
Star-Lord.
he's so great. I played
Yeah.
an excellent game of Star-Lord where on the very last turn of the game, there were 10 encounter cards dealt to us right before we won. And it was brilliant. It was so much fun assembling the Guardians of the Galaxy and just going off. So Peter Quill's whole gimmick here is he loves to play with encounter cards. He gets to do a lot of fun things, which as a player of the game feels great. You get to do a bunch of awesome stuff, but in exchange, the game is going to attack you multiple times. So yes, you get to play a card for basically free every turn, but you're going to take one extra threat every turn. And it's pretty significant because those can pile up, particularly when, very similar to Drax, you have the Daring Escape card where you get to ready your hero, replace your own cards, but you got to deal yourself an encounter card. So yes, you can do a lot of stuff, but is it worth it pulling that card? And I love this push and pull and the risk that's involved with Star-Lord. But that risk is balanced with the strength of the actions. If I can have an amazing turn now, is it worth having a terrible time like 10 minutes from now? Which is awesome. I love this push and pull here, and there's just a lot of cool things to do with how he interacts with the encounter cards, from increasing his hand size with something like the helmet, or getting extra defense or extra thwarting or extra damage. Whew, beware villains. This guy he's gonna make you feel a little bit used. What do you think of Star-Lord?
I said earlier the flavor resonance wasn't that important to me. I do think that the flavor resonance on Star-Lord is really good. It really fits like what you know about the character. He's reckless, right? He's kind of a show off. It works so well, and it tells such a fun story in his gameplay pattern. Where that turn, as you described, like I've only played Star-Lord a few times, but I ended a game with like 8 cards, and I also was like, I had to ask my Discord, I'm like, what happens if you can't find something because it's presumably a face down threat card? And they were like, you're fine. So I was like, okay, that's sick. But then number 2, like being able to take advantage, like he has one card. I don't have this thing open right now, but like it deals extra damage for each encounter card in your play area, which is, it feels so, yeah, there we go. Deal 5 damage to an enemy and deal 2 additional for each face down card in front of you. It's not limited. So on that turn where you're going wild,
Yeah,
you can deal like I had exactly, I think I had like 6, right? So that is 17 damage, right? Which is like flavorfully really fun, right? Because it goes to this awesome climax, and then like you finish it off like that. But then it also teaches you that, exactly as you said, like, do I go for a bombastic turn now for a little bit of pain later? But then I could probably survive that pain because I'm Star-Lord, baby.
and I just love this in general because you have that option every turn to play something at a discount, which means you can play a lot of really interesting and cool decks as well, which is awesome. It really opens up the deck building. And since he makes every character that's with him a guardian, you have a lot of great choices when it comes to deck building. So for his flexibility, his variety, his strong theme, his strength, his risk, his consistency, and sometimes his grieving if you're playing in the multiplayer setting, this is one of my favorite heroes ever. This is my number 4, Star-Lord.
Nice.
Wonderful character. Whew, love this one. All right, Justin, what you got? Our number 3s.
So my number 3 was the first character outside of the core box that I played, and it made me realize what my favorite style of this game was, and this is Miss Marvel. So she is a little not what I would expect to like enjoy. I don't know her character that much, but I love the spell slinging style in this game, where it's, as I said, my problem with Iron Man is that it's all about just building up supports and upgrades to make yourself really strong. Like, sure, you get a massive hand, and I can see why that's fun. But it's like in Arkham, I like skill cards. I like using my small things to get as much advantage out of them. And Miss Marvel has that. So she has the responses after you play an attack, thwart, or defense event, you can exhaust her to return that event to your hand. So then you're now thinking, okay, so I want cheap events that I can get, or cheap of these type of things to get as much as I can out of them. And then it's about how can I produce those resources? How can I get through this? And then you look at stuff like probably my favorite cards here, even though obviously you gotta love the biokinetic polymer suit to get the extra resource production, but the embiggen and the shrink that makes all of your things better is just really cool. This is a character that, as I said, I played early on, was and I fell in love with her then. But that was when I played with a very limited knowledge of this game, and I really want to revisit her because even though I'm by no means, I'm not even gonna say I'm like great at the game, but I'm a lot better than I was. To revisit her again with this new power and with this new knowledge to see what I can do with her power. I also am a big fan of Red Dagger because being able to take advantage of his ability in a way that you can like sequence and get a lot out of him, I think is really cool and really satisfying to play. The personas are all neat in their own way, but I think there's just a lot of cool things about looking at it. Opens up the deck building a lot more interesting than some of the other heroes in this game because you're now like, okay, do I want to focus on one? Do I want to focus on all three? How can I take the most advantage out of her ability? Well, also, like, I know she doesn't basic attack, and I said I love those, but it's kind of like a basic attack if you're returning the card to your hand, right? That's how that works.
I've got to agree with you here. And she basically has a basic of everything in those events, just to like the nth degree. It's so cool. Big hands. You got sneak by for the thwarting. You've got the wiggle room for the different defense events. It's so good. And like you described as well, this is just going to be a character that just gets better and better the more the card pool expands. You have all these events to choose from, lots of ways to customize. My favorite thing, though, definitely has to be what you mentioned as well, is the personas. I love that you're flipping to alter ego mode, and then you have all your buddies there, and you just get to turn all these knobs and get all these different effects going on. It is so cool. And you can have these really big turns when it comes to using Bruno, or you have lots of resource production in the form of drawing cards with Amir and just Kamala's ability herself. Oh, great pick here. Excellent. Any other thing to add here on Kamala?
No. I think I got it all covered.
All right. So that is number 3 for Justin, Miss Marvel. Now, my number 3 is one that we've actually already kind of talked about, and you've actually expressed your dislike for this character. And my number 3 is actually Iron Man. So Iron Man is, in my opinion, one of the coolest characters because he has progressive play. You start off terrible. You literally can't do anything. You have like, in hero mode, you have like 2 hand size or something ridiculous. You have nothing, and you are doing your best to assemble the armor. So right from the beginning, you are not in addition to managing all of the threat and issues that the villain is putting out, you're also having to assemble an engine build yourself. And you do this in the form of tech upgrades. And I love this system because you are putting out basically, at Arkham term here, assets and all these little knobs that you get to turn every single turn for minimal effects. But once you assemble this piece of armor, you have all of these tiny knobs that you get to pick the order in which they resolve. And the order matters so much. And I just love this whole system. So Iron Man's whole feature here is he's going to be searching for these tech cards. And oh my gosh, it is so satisfying to me. I love this gameplay. I love looking for the different equipments, the different upgrades. And with the new Guardians of the Galaxy sets, we've been introduced to a lot of new tech upgrades, which is great because that's just going to open up even more deck building and allows you to play in a way where you're actually able to find the tech a little bit more consistently and get into the action right away. Iron Man is an extremely strong hero with his card draw, his power, his choice when it comes to the different upgrades that you're going to be building with and playing with. And that means that you can actually go up to harder difficulty scenarios through the form of standard 2 and expert 2 when it comes to the hood scenario. So you have some more challenging things where you do not have really as comfortable a place to be when it comes to stunning and confusing the enemy. So you have to also incorporate some form of defense and some strategy around that. So, oh man, I really like Tony Stark, and I'm so sorry that he just doesn't do the trick for you. I think I really enjoy the play here of putting out upgrades. I like having things I can do every turn, whereas Kamala, she has the upgrades in the form of the personas, but she has that focus on events. So kind of playing with what you got every turn a little bit more tactically.
Yeah, and when I'm talking bad about Iron Man, it's not that I think he's bad, because I think like he's really good. Like his ability on the on his alter ego side is like one of the best in the game, right?
Yes.
It's just it's just a brainstorm pretty much from Magic Gathering, right? And that's always good. it's just, yeah, the asset style or the support and upgrade style doesn't really ring that well for me. But I'm definitely not here trying to say he's not strong. Like, the guy is crazy powerful. And when you have your full suit on, you feel like Iron Man. I think they really succeeded again with the flavor here. Yeah.
It really reminds me of that scene in Iron Man 3 where it's just regular man and he's just walking around at the start of
Yeah.
like the middle of the movie, and he's getting all these pieces flown into him.
Yes.
That's how
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel when I play this, and it feels great. And my favorite card actually is not an Iron Man card. It's actually Pepper Potts. I
Pepper's
think
very
she's
good.
amazing. Her
Yeah.
effect is you exhaust her, produce the resources that are on top of your discard pile, and this counts for double resources or whatever you need it to be. Some of the cards require specific icons, which I actually really like. I like that puzzle of having to find specific things. So, putting on your aerial modes. And I think it's really cool that you can use her in both of your forms. So a lot of great engine building at the start and having to kind of overcome and climb that hill, and then having a great experience once you've powered up and feeling like a true superhero. So great stuff here with Iron Man. Oh, I hope that you get some more chances to try it out and get some more time to enjoy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But wonderful hero, one that I really enjoy. All right, Justin, this brings us to our number twos. What do you got for me?
All right, so I'm gonna take a slight segue on this intro here to talk a bit about what I love most in Arkham Horror, the card game, which is efficiency. I need to be moving on turn one. And this hero to me is like peak efficiency, especially in true solo. So my number two is Gamora. Her ability on her hero side is absolutely, it's just value. It's just pure value. After you play an attack event, remove one threat from a scheme. And then after you play a thwart event, deal one damage to an enemy. This goes again with kind of like what I was saying with Miss Marvel. She is a spell slinger, right? So you're looking at playing events, you're looking at making those events better through her ability, but it's once per phase. And then you get your cross counter on this, which is just like juicy goodness. So it's on the screen. When you take any amount of damage, prevent through that damage, deal one damage to an enemy, remove one threat from a scheme. It is an attack, a defense, and a thwart. So you get to use your ability again during the enemy phase. And it's just like everything that the enemy is doing to you. Once again, this is coming from true solo. You basically just mitigate, right? Because most of the time, you're putting one threat on the scheme. And your one attack means that you don't need to thwart and you can just stay on the offensive. It's just like, it feels like the ultimate fighter. And then there are the things which are, these cards are like the least exciting cards you can ever imagine playing, to me and a lot of other heroes. Set the pace and acrobatic move. You look at these cards and you're like, yuck, right? Like, if you just look at them in the vacuum and you're like, yeah, deal 2 damage is like, there's better things I could be doing here. But with Gamora, it's now dealing a damage to an enemy, removing a threat from a scheme. And then when you get her sword out in play, so after you play an attack event, deal 1 damage to an enemy, you're just getting like more and more value. And it also gets around things because this doesn't count as attacking. Your ability doesn't count as attacking. So you can ping down things. It's fantastic for removing tough, right? If you use a thwart, like go back to set the pace to remove a threat from a scheme, you can now ping tough off an enemy and then just get killing. Obviously, her keen instincts, resource production is always good, but I got to do and actually, you're going through this forward momentum and the decisive blow. Really good cards, and it provides a puzzle where you start thinking, how can I sequence my turn in the best way to take advantage of it? Most of the time, this is really easy, but like you have a bunch of different things, like pieces in place that you can take advantage of to do this. And I think that's really cool. And a special shout out to the art on Conditioning Room, which is just them zooming in on a splash image from a comic that is by no means an actual like focused frame in there. That was just in the background that they zoomed in on. Card's also really good, but I just love the art on this card every time I see it.
I think you made some huge points here. I think this pack is pretty incredible, honestly. And just from her ally to her just main hero mode, you've got a lot of cool stuff. And her deck building where you can pull different attack and thwart events is incredible. I love that. And you can also pull in more defense protection cards and then be able to use that ability on the opponent's turn even more. Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, the deck building I didn't even talk about. That's actually one thing too that I really enjoy. And I saw a comment come up on the video about Spider Woman, same kind of thing. When you can build with different aspects, it makes the game a bit more exciting. And you only get 6 cards, but there's a lot you can do with those 6 cards to really take advantage of the build, which makes it a lot more enticing. And one last thing I really enjoy about Gamora is the story it tells whenever Nebula shows up as your whatever they're called.
Your nemesis minion.
Nemesis, thank you. Yeah. When she shows up as your nemesis, it's just like, dang, you're really gonna do this now? Thank you, right?
I love it. I love that they retained it in Nebula as well. And if you have the ally of Nebula on board, she gets discarded and replaced with it. It reminds me of Gollum in Lord of the Rings LCG, and it's so good. I love that. Yeah. Perfect.
Actually, one of my favorite things about this game is something that I wish they explored in other games, cough cough Arkham Horror, where they're not afraid to make named heroes in other places, right? Or named villains in other places. Because like Nebula showing up, she is a hero, she is an ally, she is a nemesis, and she is a villain, right? And like they care more about the story of it than like and like they care more about the character than like, no, Nebula's already this, she can't be that, right? Likewise, where you see like Taskmaster, he's a villain and he's also a nemesis, right? It's those kind of things where I think the game's better. And then if you see a hero as an ally, you don't just think, dang, they're never gonna make Squirrel Girl as a hero, but that was thrown out of the window, right? Like, or like War Machine. They're like, oh, War Machine's an ally. We're not going to get him as a hero. But this game, literally, it feels like anyone could be a hero, which I think is really cool.
I love that as well. And I love that there is this built-in system for if there is repetition. Like if it's a player card, sure, use it as a resource. You can't play it because they're already on the board, but you can use it as a resource. Not a big deal. Or if when it comes to their nemesis card, it gets search. No big deal. It's still going to spawn the side scheme. It's still going to do this other stuff, but there's built-in precautions from that core set to make sure that this is possible. And I really want to speak to what you were saying about having a ally announced from like a hero. I love that. When they announced that Black Panther was going to be an ally card, I was so excited because I'm not a big fan of his deck or his play style, but now I can play him in any leadership deck I want, which is great. So I can include my favorite characters no matter who I'm playing. So
it does a great job of painting the fantasy of a comic book, right? Like, and I think that's one thing that this game really excels at is exactly that.
Excellent. And we got Emily and Brian and David in the chat sharing some of their favorites. So thank you so much for joining in on the stream and for commenting. Happy to hear you're loving the insect-themed heroes. So maybe we'll talk more about some insect-themed characters here. Who knows? We'll see on the list. Anything else to add here? Any favorite cards in Gamora, Justin?
Probably Cross Counter, because it to me, it like perfectly sums up who Gamora is, right? Just master combatant, and she can do everything in one card. None of it's particularly strong, like none of it's particularly broken, but it's just very efficient, which to me screams Gamora.
Absolutely. For me, it's got to be what you said earlier. It's Nebula. I love just how she's everything. And this plays into that. I just love the fact that she can turn on a dime and it's so thematic, but she's like super efficient for an ally too, which is great.
Yes.
So I really like it.
And in all fairness, she should be, because she can leave at a moment's notice.
Yes. Which is wonderful. I love it. Great picks here. That's Gamora, Justin's number 2. Excellent. All right, so my number 2 is actually another one that we talked about already here, but you talked about it more in a positive light. A sibling to one of your favorite heroes. This is my number 2, Scarlet Witch. Now, Scarlet Witch here is a mystic character, and in Marvel Champions, the mystic characters are pretty well known for being, well, busted, if we're being frank. So, as you mentioned earlier, Doctor Strange is known as one of the more powerful heroes. I'm pretty sure Scarlet Witch is too, because frankly, she has access to a lot of the same card pool that Doctor Strange has, but she's a little bit more random, and I love that. It's a mix of randomness paired with power and control. And that's why I love Scarlet Witch. So when Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch here, she is a great balance between chaos magic and the consistency that comes from mystic cards. So right off the bat, she comes with a card that says you can draw 2 cards and discard 1. incredible. So that's pretty much a staple in any deck building game. If you can draw and filter and cycle and just kind of choose what you're drawing, that's pretty incredible. But Scarlet Witch's effects here are not really tied to her cards. So as her main hero mode here, sorry, not tied to her heroes. As her main hero mode here, it's not a lot of crazy abilities, crazy powers. She can modulate the number on something every turn, which sounds kind of bare minimum, not that exciting. You don't have much going on. And very similar to Quicksilver here, her first side just lets you fix. It lets you draw some more cards and kind of get your curve, get some stuff out, get playing some things. But the big thing that I love are her cards and just how explosive she is. All of the elements together don't seem crazy, but when you put them together, they're ridiculous. So Chaos Magic here, just look at this card. It's got to be my favorite card in here because it allows you to do anything. You play a card from your hand, ignoring its cost. The real cost, you discard cards from the top of the encounter deck. Who cares? You just played a 6-cost card for free. You played something amazing. You combo enabled. You did something nuts. And this is the rate that you're going through your deck and the enemy deck. Guess how many times you're going to draw this card during a game? Ridiculous amounts of times. You're going to be playing big stuff for free consistently and being able to fix your hand so that you could do it whenever you want. Scarlet Witch is crazy. She has all of this flexibility when it comes to her spells, to her resource production, but the big thing here is her Hexbolt. This is where the randomness comes into play and where her ability comes into play. When you play it, you discard the top 3 cards of the deck and something happens. You don't know. It's so crazy, and it's based on the boost icons that are on the cards you discard from the encounter deck, which is hilarious because you just have to kind of deal with the things that are happening in this case and hope for the best. And I love how you're really focusing on kind of the carnage left behind from all of your abilities and having to make some cool tactical decisions with the other tools that you've put into your deck that are not Scarlet Witch cards. And I love this gameplay. You can also go into some more intense, difficult situations because her power level is kind of skyrocketed. So you can play those standard 2 expert 2. You can take on Ronin with the standard 2 expert 2. You don't have to worry about stunning or confusing because she has damage soak in here with some of the other cards. There's a lot to love about Scarlet Witch, and all of her cards are so straightforward, but they just work extremely well. Just like Star-Lord, you can do some dumb stuff with all of the resource-free stuff that you get here by just being a mystic. Oh, it's amazing. I love Scarlet Witch. She's just so much fun. That blend between power, control, and randomness, just incredible experience. So you mentioned liking Scarlet Witch. What are your favorite things about her?
I think it's a home run because with her power of chaos magic, it literally is chaos. She has some control over her magic, but you can't control chaos completely. I think there's just a lot of good about her. And I think because her variance of the chaos can be such a flux, it makes it very exciting to play her because one of the things that if I had to point at a small fault in this game is that it kind of feels the same, especially when you get things going. And her has a little bit of just that randomness baked in. So it's a little bit more exciting than because it's always there. I also do like how she has multiples of her obligation. Is that those are those called, right? Yeah. Yeah, because I just call them weaknesses. But I do like that. It also is. It's like also kind of a positive because it also does represent 3 boost icons as well. And what it also does is it kind of like gives a little bit more juice to because I can see new players with the Chaos Magic card being a little bit scared of the acceleration tokens. But now it's all good. You basically got 1 free resource out of it, even if you were scared, right? Because like it is an extra card in the deck.
Yeah, there's so much to love. And as you mentioned, the Quicksilver in here mirrors the Quicksilver hero with its ability to ready. And it's just so good. So you can play decks where you're playing cards you never thought you'd be able to play, combinations, and just have a great time doing it. Just the fact she's a mystic enables a lot of cool strategies. It's my number 2, Scarlet Witch. Excellent, excellent character. All right, and this is it. These are our number 1s, our favorite heroes, 2022 edition. Justin, after all of your games, what has topped the list for you?
So this character felt really cool. And a bunch of people who watch this, they might say, but hey, Justin, I thought you said you didn't like this. But the reactive gameplay of this character really resonated with me. So that's going to be my number 1 as Black Widow. She has the ability where after you trigger the ability of a preparation card you control, deal 1 damage to an enemy. It literally just, she has 2s in all of her stats as well, so she's good at whatever you need her to do for a basic action, and we know how much I love a basic action. But beyond that too, just the way that you feel like a secret agent, a spy who has all of the gadgets she needs, or like all of her skills, and just whatever shows up, you are prepared for. Literally that, the preparation. I also enjoyed her because she was, my favorite aspect is justice, or as I lovingly call it, yellow. It works really well for that for her. There's a lot of good preparations, and like Agent Coulson that can take advantage of them in this pack. And I like the keeping the threat down. It's something I really enjoy, and she's built very well for that. There was just a moment where I was playing Black Widow, and something came up, and I was like, I have all these different tricks for how I can deal with this. How do I want to deal with it? And that was exciting because it was just like one of those things where it's like, okay, how am I prepared for this? We have Dance of Death as well, which is just like obviously, yeah, Retaliate sucks with this, right? Like Retaliate sucks. Like if she had to kill a Nebula with Retaliate 2, that would be a nightmare with this thing, right? But it feels so different for a card, because it basically, like, you can look at the Dance of Death and you can be like, all right, take tough off an enemy and then deal 5 damage. Or I can kill one, do this, do this. You literally feel like you are doing a Dance of Death and taking out who you need to. I do like how her alter ego and her hero also fit really well, for they each have their own style of what you want from your preparations. And this one is, it replaces itself once per turn. And then when she's in, like, because she's taking her time, she's really good at planning. And then when she's in her combat mode, her preparations now deal extra damage, which is also really nice, because anytime you can get rid of a tough token without having to do something, that's just gravy. The Winter Soldier can be really cheap. He can be very cheap. He'll cost you 0 more often than he'll cost you anything else, and then he is just a 2/2/4, and like that can put in so much work. And if I had to point to one card here in the pack, it would be Grappling Hook, because it's just a water protection. If you don't know that it's from Arkham, it stops an encounter card. There's a lot of effects that I find in this game that you can block an encounter card, but it replaces itself. This is one of the few things that I know of, once again with my limited knowledge, that just says no to the encounter card. You basically just did not draw it, and that is a very strong effect. And just gotta shout it out here.
I gotta agree with you. And it even stops Surge. It cancels the effects of the treachery. Yeah. I love it. Great pick. For me, my favorite thing in this pack, that's a great question. I don't know if I have a favorite. I really like Winter Soldier. As you mentioned, his stat line is insane, and he's usually free, and that's just amazing. But one cool thing, Covert Ops, I don't know if you know this, but it's not a hero action, and I think that's really, really cool. There's a whole deck that's based around the idea of never turning into your hero mode and playing Black Widow.
Cool.
It's ridiculous, really tedious, but extremely strong. You basically just have the villain constantly scheming, and you just are consistently playing Covert Ops or all these other ways to mitigate the threat, and you never flip into hero mode, which turns off like half of the encounter cards. It's so wild. If you like Black Widow, give that deck a try. Just to give it a try. I forget what it's called, but it's like casino mode or something like that.
Cool. That makes sense, because her art, she's in the casino for her alter ego. Yeah. Oh,
so cool. Great pick. I think you nailed it on the head. And a lot of the cool things here is there's preparations in all of the different aspects. Yeah. So you can play and you can mix and match and just see how Black Widow evolves over time. I'm curious if they'll add more preparations. I'm sure they will. It seems like
I'm sure they will eventually. Yeah, they gotta.
Great pick here. Any other things to add before we close up on Black Widow?
No, I think I'm good.
Excellent. All right. So that is Justin's number 1. Black Widow. Now we go to my number 1 here, and this is another one that you mentioned not liking in your like bottom 3, which is crazy to me. And I think that this is the best hero. He is the most fun hero to play, in my opinion, and I just have so much fun. He was my number 1 last year, and he's still my number 1 because he is actually just gotten better. Particularly, a lot of the new aggression cards that came out in the Guardians of the Galaxy sets really bolstered this character's abilities. And oh my gosh, like he's so much fun to play. You have minion centric playstyle, consistent big turns, and a setup with a million different ways to produce resources. This is my number one. This is Thor. So I love Thor. Thor's whole gimmick here is he is bulky, he is broody, and he's got tags for days. He's an Asgard Avenger. He also can become aerial, and he's just got all of these different things that are working for him. He also has access to a lot of really cool team icons, as I mentioned earlier, with the team building tactics. He's got superpowers. He's got Asgard as his trait, so lots of synergy with the new Valkyrie cards, as well as randomly some of the Guardians of the Galaxy cards in the form of Angela, and he loves minions. Now, you mentioned earlier how he's not going to find the minions, but there are so many cards now that will fish minions from the deck for you, and you may get real friendly with some of the minions in this game because you'll get to know them, be like, ah, my boy, you got 2 health, just the one I was looking for, or something like that. It is so funny. So the main draw here is Thor's draw power ability. Whenever he engages a minion, doesn't have to draw it, just engages it, he draws 2 cards. That can be in the form of drawing one from the encounter deck, one getting spawned from the effect of something, or just moving a character from one player to himself. And then that effect will trigger. And you can do it once per phase. So you can get potentially 4 extra cards through this effect. His hand size is 4, so it's kind of small, but you're drawing usually 4 extra cards. You have 8 cards, plus you have additional abilities, those resource generations I was talking about, as well as Asgard, which bumps his hand size to 1 extra. So generally, with Thor, you're going to have about 9 cards in your hand each turn. That being said, there's also some crazy new aggression cards that will give you extra cards based on the number of minions engaged with you, and then there are just amazing ways to pull minions out of the deck. Now, that being said, you're going to have a million cards. What do you do with all these cards? Well, first off, you've got some insanely thematic cards in the form of Hammer Throw, and this is really cool because it's going to use those minions that you're pulling out through other abilities. You have Overkill, you're going to be using aggression, so you have the Reckless Assault card, so you're going to be constantly doing overkill damage. And I love this whole idea because a lot of the times it doesn't feel very good for me to actually punch the villain. I feel like I'm not doing anything on my turn if I just attack the villain. But if I am killing a minion and dealing like, an extra 6 damage for free to the villain, it feels great because I feel like I'm doing so much at that point. I'm dealing with an immediate threat. I'm also doing those big chip damage. I'm not getting retaliate damage because I'm overkilling through something. You can dodge a lot of really detrimental effects, but in a really unique, fun, and thematic way. So Hammer Throw is a great one here. I love that Lightning Strike allows you to really put as much as you want in here, and it really benefits you having all these minions on you. And there are so many ways to actually pull minions out of the deck. One that's just in the base set for Thor here is Defender of the Nine Realms. This allows you to remove threats, so it kind of covers his weakness of not being so great at threat removal. There are some new aggression cards that remove threat and fish for minions. And with the new cards from the Valkyrie hero set, they've introduced even more Asgard cards, including the Bifrost, which just lets you summon for free Asgard minions from your deck. You can summon Angela, and Angela has an effect where she pulls out more minions from the deck. So you'll always have a minion when you need it. You can always efficiently overkill something, and you have so many choices when it comes to removing threat or removing damage through overkill. There is so much to love here, and just the amount of tags and resource production that comes from it, and just the thematic nature of being able to recall and summon Mjolnir every turn. I love Thor. I find this playstyle extremely satisfying as you're building up this engine of resource production for these different facets of your cards and getting to use them every round to play and abuse the Asgard and superpower effects. I love Thor. I think he's an incredible hero. So what things do you find redeeming about Thor at all?
Oh well, so when I was asked to give my bottom ones, I've only played Thor once, so like it was going with very limited knowledge, and it was only when it was just his pack. So
okay, that's
I do
totally
know
fair.
there are a lot of more cards that like recently I've even seen them. I haven't played with them yet that increase the ability to grab minions, which definitely I can respect the fact that is when you can get consistency and having his ability go off, he'll be better. But most of that is just like I have really nothing against Thor. It was just one of the ones that I had to go off the top of my head that I played, and I was like, okay, it's probably him. You do great at selling them though. Like there's a one thing I do also really like about Thor, and also about the design of the game. You see it also in Hawkeye, Captain America, Thor. I imagine also in Valkyrie. where these heroes are built around an item, and you don't need to find that item. It's found for you, which I think makes it really good because it's so important, and it allows them to have that flavor without giving up function, right? Like it's like a second part of their character, which I think also just greatly improves the design of this game and what they can do with it.
I have to agree with you wholeheartedly. And we're even seeing this with the newest hero, Nova. He's got his helmet that he's going to keep on abusing by creating wild resources. Yeah, I totally agree. It's so awesome. And speaking to what you said, trying to find a bottom three, there's only one hero I dislike in all of Marvel Champions because I think the heroes are so well done.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's the same for both of us. We both good old Herc. We don't really like him that much.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel like Drax is what Hulk should have been.
Yeah, I feel like just with Hulk, they were a bit too scared at that point in design to make him really like. They were a little bit worried. They were just like, we gotta tone this guy down a bit in playtesting.
I agree. And unlike Thor here, who has so many different options when it comes to resource production, I feel like that's what Hulk is really missing. He has that 4 hand size that's pretty dooming, and there's not really much he can do outside of that. So
yeah, because like you said, like if you're getting a minion, you have 6 hand size as a hero, which is really high for a hero's hand size. Only really like Iron Man competes with that off the top of my head. But it's yeah, also when I played Thor my first time, I didn't even like the aggression class, but now I do. So I think if I played Thor again, my opinion on him would change quite a bit. So
let me know when you do, because there's some really cool dumb stuff you can do with Thor, and I just love the idea of choosing a minion, bringing him to you, and then beating the crap out of it and doing all that overkill damage. And everyone's just like, "Wow, you're so cool!" It's amazing. I love Thor.
And I saw the comment too where Thor against Ultron. Yeah, that seems really juicy.
It's
awesome. Seems really juicy.
And it seems like with the Asgard theme, they're going to continue in this minion-centric mode. With Valkyrie, a lot of her whole things revolve around minions as well, but in a completely different way, which is another thing I just really appreciate. They're able to keep that flavor, allow you to mix and match cards between the two characters, but still feel very distinct and unique. Love Marvel Champions. Love Thor. That's my number 1. Thor.
Nice.
And that's it. That's our list. Those are our top 10 combined Marvel Champions heroes as of 2022 for February. Any other final thoughts or anything that you just are enjoying about Marvel Champions in general?
I did want to ask you something.
Sure.
What heroes are you most wanting? Who are your heroes that you like can't wait to get? If you had to choose one hero.
If I had to choose one hero right now, oh man, that's so rough. Do you have one prepped? I need like a second.
I could probably. I mean, honestly, like for me, it's probably I want them to start integrating the X-Men. I need to get like a Nightcrawler would probably. He's one of my favorites. I've always liked Nightcrawler. I think they could do some really cool stuff with the teleportation. So I think Nightcrawler would be mine if I had to get like just like him like dodging, teleporting around. I think would be really cool. Yeah.
I think that the character that I'm most excited for is actually the same character that's my favorite in Marvel Legendary, actually, the deck building game. It's Rick Jones. Have you ever heard of this character?
Is he from the Hulk expansion?
He's from the Hulk expansion.
That's the only expansion I don't have for Marvel Legendary.
Oh my gosh, it's the best expansion. He's the best character in Marvel Legendary. So Rick Jones's whole thing is he transforms. And he has like a bunch of different things he can transform into. I don't know the lore of this character. I don't know anything about Rick Jones other than his like Marvel Legendary cards. But that idea of having like all of these different things, we've seen it before in things like Spectrum and Ant-Man. But I think that the game, by the time this obscure character would show up, the amount that it would evolve, I'm thinking something more in the lines of Vision, where maybe you have something a bit more interesting that affects all aspects of what you're playing.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I think that would be amazing just because his forms are so different and so interesting. But oh man, or maybe even a redone version of Hulk with this new modern mindset. I would love a revisit of some of the poorly done characters. So that would be ideal for me.
Yeah, I do wonder because they have the taboo list in Arkham Horror. I wonder if they're going. Oh yeah, one sec. I have to get interrupted by that comment. Nightcrawler, Colossus, and Wolverine. Yeah, that's a great. For me, if you just put Beast on the end of that, like that's to me everyone I want. And you know what? There's like I like a lot of the X-Men. All the X-Men are really cool, and because like even though like you can tell that Fantasy Flight has been very smart with their release schedule. because they've kind of been focusing on the cinematic universe. But this is not the MCU champions, right? This is Marvel champions. So like they'll eventually get to the X-Men, right?
Yes. And actually, I don't know if you saw this, but there's a leak that's kind of what's happening next. And the keyword exists already in the game. I think it's X Factor or something like that. We've seen it on Warlock. He was in the Quicksilver's hero set. So it exists, the tag. So after Spider-Man, that's apparently what's coming next, which is super exciting because it looks like it's a big campaign box, which might have some of the fan favorite heroes in it. So I'm thinking Wolverine is probably going to be in this hero set.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. That's going to be huge. And I think they're getting better with their design and release too. Like the hood pack had a lot of good in it. And then also with the one thing this is coming from a little bit of ignorance, but like the Nova pack starting to have modular sets in it, I think is better because I do think that the player card designs, I think it's more shallow than we think it is, right? Because the game itself is actually pretty simple, right? And I think they're good designs they need to leave for heroes, and their player cards, they just can't keep making better stuff, right? They should focus on doing less like hero cards and add more modularity in their hero packs. I think it's a great idea to also extend the design pool of the game.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I like the idea of just being able to change up scenarios. Somebody floated the idea of having interchangeable hero sets. So like maybe 5 cards that you replace. So kind of like the parallel investigators in Arkham Horror. So I really like that idea. It just sounds like it makes sense, right? Like a different multiversal pack or something like that.
I also, that made me kind of think of this. This is when I lost my train of thought when the commenter said Wolverine, X-Men, and the other one. But because there's a taboo list for Arkham Horror. Do you think they're going to do something similar for this game?
Don't.
That's how they can target Hulk, right?
I don't think they'll do a taboo list for this game because you can always decrease or increase the difficulty. But that happens in Arkham Horror too. So
I think less about
that's a weird one.
I think more about like, if anything, like they should call it the Hulk list, right? Where they give him a little boost. I don't think it's likely like either. But I could see them like what it does for, because this game's less dependent than Arkham Horror is on the player cards, right? I think they don't need to do that as much because the release schedule is so quick for this game, right? And it's not like you have to buy, if you miss out on a hero, who cares, right? You can get it eventually, right? It's not as, I don't think it needs to be as balanced on that part of it like Arkham Horror does.
That makes sense to me. I have one last question before we wrap up. What's your favorite scenario to go against? Who's your favorite villain?
Would everyone hate me if I said Absorbing Man?
He's fun. Definitely fun. Now that Standard 2 and Expert 2 exist?
No, I that's kind of just a joke because I always get to him and I beat him in like 12 minutes. And he always is in the dumb wood trait. Like I never see any of the other traits. He's always just wood. For me, there was one game where he was ice and I was like, thank God. And then on the first turn I drew wood and I was like, no. I think that's a tough question. I kind of like my 2 favorite ones that I like the most that I've played. I like Crossbones. He's a great testing ground. I used to do against Rhino, and Rhino was kind of just boring, right? But you go against Crossbones, and he's like, to me, like the perfect first testing ground for a deck. And I also like the, I think it's the Risky Business Green Goblin. I like that one too. Yeah.
Interesting. That's really funny that you mentioned Crossbones because that's my brother's like, that's his nemesis. He can never defeat Crossbones. And I find that hilarious because it's Crossbones. And it's so funny to me because he's like, my nemesis. And I always get messages of him losing to Crossbones and it cracks me up. My favorite scenario has to be Kang. I love the arc of that scenario. I'm not going to spoil anything. That's amazing. Get that one. It's so interesting. And once again, the addition of Expert 2 and Standard 2 are great with it. And it also has an entire Expert set that replaces the Standard set that comes in it. Cool. So you can really have 2 unique experiences. So good. You got to try out the Kang scenario. Amazing.
Sweet.
But that's everything. Those are our thoughts and where we're at currently with how much we love Marvel Champions, the card game. Once again, please go check out Justin's channel over at Playing Board Games. He and his crew do some incredible things over there if you're interested in Marvel Champion live plays, as well as Arkham Horror, and just a variety of board games in general. So enjoy that. Make sure you're subscribed. And thank you so much, Justin, for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
This was a blast. Thank you so much for joining us in the live chat. And if you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation, please do so in the comments below. What are your favorite Marvel Champions heroes? Do you agree with our picks? Whose list do you align more with, Justin or myself? I'd love to hear what you think. Any other final thoughts, Justin?
Nah, not for me.
All right. Thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong, y'all.